What's going on, y'all? It's TCG here, and I gotta know, are you ready for the film? Are you ready for the film deck? That's my question here, is this UTA film deck really worth it? That's what I want to talk about in this video here today. So I've got the deck list for the UTA deck laid out here. I pre-ordered mine and I haven't received them yet, or I would be doing this in more of a top-down video style with the actual cards. However, I figured this is still just as good enough to take a look at these and kind of talk about the contents of this deck, what you're getting out of it, and is it really worth it? You know, like these are only like $10 to $12 if you can find them at MSRP, maybe on your local Target or Walmart shelves, or your LGS if they're not overcharging for them. But on the reseller market, you know, structured decks tend to go for double, sometimes even triple. So like I said, I kind of just wanted to talk about if this is really going to be worth it or not. So first of all, if you haven't read any of these cards, most of them are just reprints from OPO2, all the green film cards. And then on top of that, we get a couple new ones, including a new UTA leader. So I have one big gripe about this, and you can give me your own opinion in the comments if you'd like to, but I am personally not a fan of how much love they are giving to UTA, just because I think that there are other more fan favorite characters in the One Piece universe that should have received more love and support than her. But that is just a personal opinion. Some of the cards are still really powerful and still really good, and do allow for cool deck buildings and cool decks in general. But that's just a personal complaint. You know, I know that there is a whole movie based around her, and it is widely popular. It is a good movie, but I just feel that some other characters could be shown love before her. But besides that, let's just go ahead and take a look at the contents of this and what the deck does. So if you've never played with the film cards, or you haven't played against them, maybe you're newer to the game, they like to play multiples from their hand. So like they like to get you more advantage and more usage out of your Dawn than you typically would. And a very common strategy in the OPO4 format was the green purple Doflamingo leader with a film package in it, playing Nami's, Luffy's, and a couple other cards to just try and swarm the board and defend yourself with your extra Dawn and stuff. But now we have a dedicated green UTA film leader and some new events that go well with her. We're not going to be covering the promo events that you got for participating in the UTA sealed deck battle, but really just the cards that come in this structure deck. You know, we're trying to figure out if this is worth it. So UTA green leader, 5k power, 5 life, special attribute. Dawn ×1 when attacking once per turn. Reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a film type card, add it to your hand, then return the remaining card to the bottom of your deck. So when you attack with the Dawn, you get to look at the top card. If it's film, add it. If not, it goes to the bottom. And I'd say in 90% of the cases, you're always getting the add. You know, most of the cards you're playing in the deck are film. In a competitive list, you're definitely going to be playing a couple cards that aren't film, but like I said, 90% of the deck is film, so it'll be very rare that you don't whiff. But if you're playing straight out of the box with just the structure deck contents, you will never whiff. They were all film cards. So I think that this leader ability is very, very strong, especially in combination with the other film cards that we have access to, such as the new event card, New Genesis, as well as Searcher Nami. You could just search multiple times a turn and get so much hand advantage over your opponent that it can feel overwhelming for them at times, and it can really lead you to victory very quickly. You can see all of your engine pieces that you want to see, as well as a handful of 2k counters and events to help you close out the game. I do like this leader effect a lot, and I do think that it's very strong. However, I was talking to my friends about this, and I felt that to make a pure film deck work like this, they had to give it some really broken searchability and very strong events in order to make it somewhat playable. You know, just being able to go Luffy into Brook into Nami isn't going to win you every single game, but being able to search with Nami and search with your leader and search with New Genesis all in the same turn, sometimes even multiple times a turn, also in combination with another event that restands your leader and another one that pops and rests 5k, like it just gets very strong. And yeah, let's just go ahead and look at the rest of them. So we got Usopp, 3-drop 5k, vanilla, film, Straw Hat Crew, nothing crazy. Same with Jinbei, he's a 2-drop 4k. They both have 1ks. I will say that almost every card has a 1k except for Monkey D. Luffy, so you will not be lacking in counter power when you're playing this deck unless you're just full of events. But most of the time you have quite a few counters in your hand when you're using your searchers, right? And then we have 4 copies of Tony Chopper, 2-drop 2K, 2K counter, and he does have an effect. It's dawn ×1 when attacking. Rest an opponent's character with the cost of 2 or less. So not a bad effect, but not a great effect. It's very unlikely that this will hit the field before it hits the trash as a counter. Next we have the 2-cost 3K Law. Counter 1,000, activate main, pay a dawn. You may return this character to the owner's hand and play a character with the cost of 3 from your hand. So very good to be able to start getting advantage early, but we don't really see that until we get a couple of new cards from the Zoro Sanji structure deck, where you get to use this on turn 1. You play this, and then turn 2, you pay the dawn, play Mihawk into Brook into Nami on turn 2 for just like 1 dawn, which is absolutely absurd. That's when this deck really starts to take off, but for now, I think that this card is a little underwhelming. You could definitely do some plays with it, maybe play Usopp or play a Robin or something like that, but for now, it's just okay. I know that it was a big MVP in the Uta Sealed Battle event. Then we have the 3-drop 4K Robin, 1,000 counter. On play, plays a Film or Straw Hat True type character with the cost of 2 or less from your hand. Then we have a 5/7 Vanilla Frankie with 1,000 counter. We have the 4/5 Brook with 1,000 counter that on play plays a Film or Straw Hat Crew type character with the cost of 3 or less from your hand. So this is really where your combos start to take off. You know, Robin can play a 2 or less, but Brook being able to play a 3 or less, I mean, if you really had it in your hand, you could play Brook into Robin into something like Jinbei or Chopper or Law. So that's interesting, but a lot of the times I'd rather hold those cards in my hand for counter, you know, if I was going to play this deck, instead of trying to swarm the board with smaller bodies like this. I guess it really depends on what you have and what you're playing, what your build is looking like, but a lot of the times that people like to go for the play with Luffy. So Luffy is your 7-drop 7K main beater of the deck. I guess blocker of the deck, but he definitely can be a beater if you need him to be. On play, plays a Film or Straw Hat True type character with the cost of 4 or less from your hand. So typically, the combo in competitive builds goes Luffy into Brook into Nami, and then Nami's on-play ability activates, and you get a search. But you might be asking yourself, Gum, where's Nami? That's kind of one of the things I wanted to bring up, is that Nami's not included in this deck. It's not been reprinted. They decided not to reprint, in my opinion, for the green film cards out of OPO2, the most important one, getting you that search and advantage. They didn't reprint Nami, and she's an SR, so she has gone up in price a little bit. Last time I checked, she was floating around $15 to $16 a copy, but you get everything else you really need in here, so picking up those Namis isn't too bad. I am going to show you a competitive list that topped a flagship in Japan here in just a moment, just to give you an idea of what something more competitive looks like for this deck. But yeah, without the Namis, it's kind of struggling, you know, like you are relying more on just your leader and the new Genesis card to get your searching done, when Nami can help you get an extra search every single turn and on play. So yeah, it kind of hurts that that's not there, but Luffy is definitely a very strong card, being able to play any of your other cards from hand except for Frankie. And that leads me to my next card, Zoro. 4 copies of Zoro, 4 cost 6K, counter 1,000. Just a nice, another vanilla beater, you know, 1 dawn makes him 7K, lethal hit on most leaders. Then we have 2 copies of the 3-cost 4K Uta blocker. Now, this is a new card, and this one's actually pretty good. So, another thing people were playing with when the film cards were first discovered, like how strong they were. People were playing with the promo Bartolomeo from the tournament packs, and those shot up in price very, very fast and very, very quickly, and now they're still floating at least, I want to say $50 the last time I looked for just the lowest rarity ones, but it did just get another NA stamped version. However, I don't think that brought the price down of the other one at all. So people were playing like multiple copies of that in a structure in a deck, and now that it's super expensive, a lot of people just don't want to pay for that price, and I think this Uta helps you with that, because like I said, she's a 3-cost 4K blocker with 1,000 counter, and at the end of your turn you can discard an event from your hand and set a film type character as active. So I think the Bart still did it better, but this is definitely a decent replacement for that, and I don't think that in a competitive build that you need Bart. I think it's nice, you can play it, but I don't think it's necessary. Next, they do give you 4 copies of the 3-cost event, 3-sword style Onigiri, and it's a counter that gives one of your leaders or characters 6,000 power, and then you can play a character with the cost of 3 or less with no effect from your hand. So for 3 Dawn, getting 6k, being able to protect your life, and playing something like Usopp, Jinbei from your hand, not too bad of an effect. Most of the time people are dropping the Usopp off of it. So I do like this card. I think it's decent, but I do think saving 3 Dawn at the end of the turn is a little harder to do than just saving something like 2 Dawn. Next we have 2 copies of Backlight, another new event card, and it says, main, if your leader is Uta, choose one of the below. Rest up to one of your opponent's cost 5 or lower characters, or KO one of your opponent's cost 5 or lower rested characters. So getting some ability to manipulate your opponent's board state and resting and popping is actually very nice, and I do like that they included this. However, one thing you'll notice with these 2 event cards is neither of them have triggers. I think they're strong enough without them, but not having triggers and pulling them out of life when you really need something that has a trigger or something maybe a little more helpful, like a counter, could definitely impact the game state and hurt you in the long run. But I do think that this card is very strong, just as much as the other card, New Genesis. This card is basically a 0 cost event. I'm going to read it to you, and just so that you understand why it's a 0 cost event. It's main, if your leader is Uta, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 film type card other than New Genesis, and add it to your hand. So it is a top 3 searcher and just cannot add itself. Then you return the remaining cards to the bottom of your deck in any order, then set up to 1 rested Dawn as active. So you pay the Dawn, get the search, then restand the Dawn. I feel that it is a little redundant to do it that way, but I have a feeling they did it that way for a specific reason. If you know what that reason is, maybe let me know down in the comments, because I'm still kind of curious as to why it wouldn't just be a 0 cost. But I guess they had to make it so that you can't just do it after expending all your Dawn for the turn. You have to have at least 1 to pay. So I guess that's probably the reason behind it, but it's basically a 0 cost event. You just have to have that 1 to pay it, and then you get it back. So I guess they just didn't want you going all out, all 10 Dawn, and then getting it for free as well. Next we have the 3 cost I'm Invincible, which I think is another really strong card. It's basically just cat out of the bag for Kuro. You know, it's a 3 cost main, set up to one of your leader Utas as active. And the way that they worded these cards is, if your leader is Uta, it makes me believe that there will be another green Uta leader in the future. Maybe we'll get a green purple finally, something that fits the film cards a little bit better than Doflamingo did, but I guess we'll just have to see in the future. However, like I said, the wording on these makes me believe that there will be another green Uta leader in the future, probably a dual color. It also has a trigger that says give up to one of your leaders or characters power plus 1,000 for this turn. So that's a pretty typical event trigger. We've seen it on multiple cards like Rad Beam and the like before. But for $12, is this worth it? I do want to say that if you are a fan of the film cards and how they play and generating that advantage, getting multiple plays a turn, extra Dawn usage, if you will, then this is worth it, and I do think that you would like it. I mean, if you already have all the other film cards, really you're only paying for the leader, the 2 super rares, and then the new events. So if you're wanting to play this competitively, definitely pick up 2. It's something that I preach, and I think a lot of people do, is always pick up 2 of a starter deck if you can, just because they like to print the super rares and sometimes some of the commons as 2-ofs, just so that you have a full play set, because you will never know when you want to play a full play set of that card in a list. At least for me, when deck building, I like to change my lists around a lot, and having the option to play a full play set of something when I've only been playing 2 of it for a while sometimes comes up, and I do recommend it. So if you can grab 2 of these and you're wanting to play it, I would say grab it. It is worth it. Let's go ahead and take a look at a more competitive list and talk about that. Alrighty, y'all, before we talk about this competitive list, I do want to shout out Dueling Guard. If you haven't heard of Dueling Guard, they are the best TCG accessory company on the market. They make high-quality anime-inspired TCG accessories such as deck boxes, binders, and playmats. And if you haven't gotten to hold one of these in person yet, or you haven't gotten to see one of these, go check out their website, or maybe even go check out my review for them. I'll leave a link to that down in the description below. Their quality is top-notch, and their designs are top-notch as well. Make sure to go check out their website in the link in the description below and use code GumGumTCG for a discount at checkout. What? You haven't heard of Dueling Guard? Dueling Guard is the best TCG accessory company on the market. They have high quality deck boxes, binders, and playmats made for people who enjoy playing and collecting trading card games in style. They have tons of designs based off of fan favorite animes such as One Piece, Bleach, Full Metal Alchemist, and many more. They hit the ground running earlier this year, making high quality TCG accessories with beautiful designs that have sold out many times. So if you haven't picked up any of their products, make sure to do so before they sell out again. I have a few deck boxes and playmats from them already and can attest to how they don't cut any corners when it comes to quality, performance, and design. I highly recommend their products and use them every time I play cards. Be sure to check the description below for a link to their site and use code GUMGUMTCG for a discount at checkout. And here we are, UTA competitive list. You know, like I said, this won a flagship in Japan when it first came out. I want to show you something a little more competitive, but we do not have access to the 3-drop Draco Mihawk yet, and I think once that card comes out, this deck becomes just a little bit better, being able to make some bigger pushes and bigger plays earlier on. But for now, I do still think that this deck is pretty intimidating. You know, if you just let them accrue all these resources and you can't control their hand size with a lot of attacks and board presence, if your deck can't go wide easily, then I think you're going to have a hard time dealing with this, just because of how many bodies and blockers and searches they do. It just really gets out of hand. So if you're playing a deck that can go wide, I think that you will have a decent matchup against this. But if you're playing something that only plays maybe one big dingus a turn, like I've been playing red purple Luffy, you're going to have a harder time. It's still a winnable matchup, but you will have a harder time with it. So let's go ahead and look at it. Of course, you got the UTA leader, but here's 4 copies of Izo. This is just a good 2K. You know, it has that good rest 4 or less ability on it. So it has some utility behind it. A lot more utility than some of our other green 2Ks, such as Scratchman and Pooh. So I do like the idea of playing this. Again, though, it is not searchable, so that's kind of one of your whiffs on your film cards here, your film searchers. So that's a possible whiff there, but like I said, it's 90% of the deck is film. You're most of the time not going to whiff. We're on 4 Usopp, just so that we have something to play off of Brook if we don't have our Nami or something else like that. And then I don't know, just a 3-5 vanilla is not a bad option if you have no other plays. Then we're on 4 copies of Chopper, only on 8 2Ks in this list. You know, I think that that's fine when you're generating so much advantage and you can have so much board presence so quickly with a deck like this, and you're standing up with some big blockers like a 7K blocker, and then also another one that can stand up your other cards to make them not being able to be attacked. You're only really having to defend your leader, and being able to keep those blockers active as well really helps. So I think 8 2Ks is fine. I personally like a little bit higher number, but if I were to build something, it would be close to this list, and I think 8 2Ks does the trick. A lot of your other cards have counters, and you'll be all right. Next, 4 copies of the 2-drop Law. This is, like I said, just to get some earlier plays going if you really need it. If you're going second, you can drop this on the board and then maybe bounce it, play Nami, and get a search, and then you'll also have more Dawn remaining for your leader effect, and then maybe even a new Genesis, get like 3 searches in a turn. Pretty good. Not amazing, not horrible, but pretty good. And then, of course, we are on 4 copies of Nami. Like I said, this is not included in the deck, so I think this is one of those other things that like makes me question, is this worth it? You know, in my opinion, one of the best cards for the green film cards to be left out of the starter deck. Just kind of feels kind of shitty of Bandai to do it that way, but they got to make money somehow and make you go buy older product, I guess. I don't know, but I do say that Nami is mandatory in the deck. If you're going to want to play this deck, maybe you're just now getting into the game, you're going to want to spend that extra $60 to get your Namis, at least the Namis. Like we're playing the Izos and the Doflamingos as well. The Izos shouldn't be too expensive, but Doflamingos will be a couple dollars as well. If you're only looking to buy one of these extra cards, get the Namis. Like, buy the 2 structure decks, get the Namis, and you'll be all right. Next, we are on 4 copies of Brook. You know, like I said, a lot of the times you like to go play Brook into Nami and then get a search if you can, or Luffy into Brook into Nami, get a search. Brook is just it's that enabler for early game plays if you really need it to. And then off of the Luffy, it makes for those bigger pushes. So 4 copies of both of those. And then also 4 copies of Zoro, just a good solid vanilla that you can play off of Luffy if you need to. So you don't have your Brook, or if you have your Brook and not something better to play off of it, then sometimes you'll just go Luffy into Zoro. Or who knows, maybe your hand's really bad and you just need to slap a vanilla Zoro on the field. 6k body, not a bad idea. Then 4 copies of Doflamingo. Like I said, we're only on 8 non-searchable cards, so your leader effect will not whiff that often. Your Nami will not whiff that often. Your new Genesis will not whiff that often. And we have to have some kind of top end, right? Like Luffy being a 7k body is fine, but he's your blocker. You want to defend with him. If you don't have an event to trash for this Uta, and you don't even have this Uta on field, it's not often you're going to swing at this Luffy, you know? Like, I'd say that it's not often you're going to swing at this Luffy at all until the game's getting closer to the end. So having something that can help lock down your opponent's plays and make the game a little bit slower so that you can get that extra advantage off of them, maybe a couple extra swings with your other smaller bodies, then go for game with your bigger guys a turn later or something. Definitely a must-have. This card is devastating, especially dropped in multiples, so like turn after turn after turn, usually wins you the game. And then next, like I said, 4 of this Uta, you got to play it. It's really strong, 3-cost blocker. If you have the extra event in hand that you don't need, you can just swing with your Luffy, use this to restand it. It's really, really strong. I think that this is great to play off of Brook. It's great to play off of Luffy. It's just solid blocker. 4 backlight, you know, you got to have that rest and removal if you really need it. 4 new Genesis to get that free search. And then 2 I'm Invincible so that you can help close out the game. And most of the time you'll just be holding this until your last turn, and then get a couple swings in with your leader before you swing with the rest of your bodies. And yeah, that rounds out the list. Like I said, this won a flagship, and I think that it is a very powerful threat. Of course, Sakazuki being in the room, being able to remove most of the board pretty efficiently almost every single turn is a lot harder to do against a deck that can play multiple copies in a single turn. So if you can line up your plays where you're playing Luffy into Brook into Nami, or Luffy into Zoro, or Luffy into blocker almost every turn, multiple turns in a row, it's not often that they're going to be able to do it after 3 or 4 turns. So I think that this has a good stand-up in the meta right now. It's very good against a grindy deck like a Nell, where they're trying to just grind the game out until you're out of resources, maybe starve you for resources, and then try to kill you slowly. This has that setup that you're just going to amass incredible amounts of advantage, and I think if anything you would deck out before they starve you, just being able to search so much if you just kept doing it. But I think that this has the potential to top a couple tournaments here in the next couple of weeks, at least until we get the new set. And once OPO6 comes out, there are a couple cards that you could probably splash in here, like the big 7-drop Hody Jones is a really good card. I would recommend maybe picking up and trying out. And then I also recommend picking up the Zanji Zoro structure deck and putting in 4 copies of the Draco Mihawk, because it is not only another 2k, but it also enables you to start doing some big momentum pushes early game. But overall, in my final thoughts and conclusion, is this Uta deck worth it? I do say it's worth it. You know, we don't ever know what's coming on the horizon, but I always try to think and theorize about what there is to come. And with the wording on these cards, if your leader is Uta, that makes me believe that there's going to be another green Uta leader in the future that we could possibly play these with. You know, it is leader locked. They want it to not be played in something else. Like, this would be pretty strong in other decks as well. Same with this I'm Invincible. Like, if any deck had access to just restand, like if they give this to Green Kid, that would enable him to be able to restand and swing 3 times in one turn instead of just 2. But I had to do it to something like Uta instead. So and Kuro has a similar one as well. So I think that this is worth it. You know, you do get this super rare Uta, you get your new Genesis, you get your backlights and your I'm Invincibles, and then if you didn't have the film cards, you get access to playsets of like all of them. The only thing that I think this deck is lacking is that Nami. I think that if they did include Nami as just a common, I think that would have made this infinitely better and 100% worth it. I'm still kind of sold on like 80% worth it. Just because it doesn't include that Nami. The rest of the cards that you really want for this deck for right now are only like maybe cents with Ezo, and then a couple dollars a piece with Doflamingo. So I think that if you're wanting to build this competitive version, you're going to be looking at is if you can get your cards for MSRP, your decks for MSRP, and your cards for like lowest TCG verified. I think for Uta decks, you're going to be looking at about $24-25 with tax, and then you're probably going to be looking at a couple dollars a piece on Doflamingos. I'd estimate anywhere from $2 to $5 a piece. So we'll say on the high end, $3-4. So that's another 15-16 bucks there, so about 40 bucks. We'll call these each dollar piece, say 44-45 with tax, and then get your Namis for maybe 15 if you're lucky, maybe $100 to get somewhat of a pretty viable competitive deck. And I don't think that's a big cost at all. Like I said, some of these are restricted to film type cards, so they're not going to be super playable in other decks or other versions of other decks. If you're playing these in other decks, you're going to be playing a lot of the other film cards as well. You're not just going to throw Luffy into a deck without your other film cards, right? So that's my 2 cents. I do think that it's worth it if you're thinking about it, if you're wanting to play film, if you played Doflamingo and you enjoyed it, or even if you're new to this game and you're looking for something easy to play, competitive, and easy to get into the game. I'd recommend picking this up, playing a list something similar to this, and giving the One Piece card game out a try. So that's about all I have for today. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on the Uta structure deck. I'd love to hear them, and let me know if you think you're going to be making a movie with this deck, you know, if you're going to be out there topping regionals and stuff. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see if this deck could get a top in some of the online regionals coming up here soon. I believe there's a couple more in the next coming weeks. So, yeah, I'd love to hear what you have to think. Don't forget to go check out Dueling Garden. Use code GumGumTCG. Join my Discord server if you want to talk more about the One Piece card game. And I will see you all on the next one. Peace.